Did you see that guy, Representative, what's his name? Tim Burchett? Is that his name? Who was talking about there's 5 specific areas where these things seem to be emanating from the ocean?
I'm generally familiar. I don't remember what those areas are. I know that
It was a weird conversation.
one of them is very near me. It's the Channel Islands corridor.
Right.
I tracked down this book that's out of print now called The Unidentified. No, it's the UFOs and USOs, unidentified submersible objects of the Santa Catalina Channel. This guy went around.
Is that common?
Well, in this one area, tons of bizarre activity. This guy went around and he interviewed everybody who had a weird story. And he points out in his prologue, these are all just the stories I've collected. I have not edited these stories. I've not modified these stories. And the people have verified that they are correct. And you hear they are all on the record. This is their name. He didn't include anybody who was anonymous because his point was if it's anonymous, you could just claim I made it up. It has to be a real person who stands behind it. And he said, you'll notice that across about 50 years of stories I've collected, that there's extraordinary commonality between these stories. People who have never met, have no reason to work together, have no reason to have a common story, and yet they all observe very similar things. And that when you see a one-off, it's hard to draw a conclusion. When you see a pattern, it becomes a lot more
What are they
interesting.
observing specifically?
The things that they were seeing were vehicles that were in the sky and then going into the water at high speed and appearing to like not hitting them and slamming and exploding like you'd expect, but instead still a huge flash, but just seamlessly transitioning into the water. Lots of noise, lots of splash, but not like destroying themselves. And then similarly, objects coming out of the water in the same way. And so they all describe these very, very steep approach paths. So like not coming in like an aircraft landing on the water, but almost like coming out of the sky at these very steep angles and then just smashing into the water in a way you would expect would destroy anything. But then instead, the vehicles are apparently fine and the water just parts around them as they rocket in.
Ooh.
And so is there some technology that can displace air around you that can also displace water around you is kind of the interesting theory there. But yeah, that particular I've dug into because it's only about 20 miles away from my house. So
The weird one is the breakaway civilization thing.
yes.
That's the weird one because that's the most ridiculous until you start thinking about it. And then you start looking back at past civilizations like ancient Egypt and some of the monolithic construction around the world.
You've read Chariots of the Gods? Mm-hmm. I read Chariots of the Gods when I was, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8.
It was a fun movie, too.
Oh, I haven't seen the movie. I didn't even know
It's
there
an
was a movie.
old-ass movie.
Well, it's an
yeah.
old-ass book.
It was in the movie theaters.
So the interesting thing about it is like I've dug into a lot of that as I've gotten older. And yes, there are things in there where like we've now learned that they weren't true, but some of it holds up. There's still really bizarre stuff that was happening in ancient civilizations that is common between civilizations. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense when you think about it conventionally. Well, what do you think about the theory that that there's other sentient that the other sentient species of Earth might have better lore on this than us? Have you heard of this theory?
No.
I don't want to. So this is going to make me sound a bit like a little bit like a nutter, but I'm pretty deep on. We're pretty deep down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
on this.
we're on nutter territory right now.
So people have oral traditions that have passed down pretty well, but we've also observed that stories can pass down in other sentient species like whales, like dolphins. They have these whale calls that have been constant for a long time. They communicate with each other, and it's not that crazy of an idea. And so you wonder, for example, if we could understand them, what would they have to say about any of this stuff? Like maybe they're not smart enough to have anything to say, but do they have anything to say about and like it may not be obvious. It may not be we know about star people who are going through stargates.
Right.
But for example, what if there's oral tradition or even genetic programming around, oh, we never go to this area. Never go to this place, or never eat the food from this place. Could there be interesting leads that are buried in cultures that are not human?
But we were talking about that before, that you're working on interspecies communication.
Are you familiar with the X Prize Foundation?
Yes, we were just talking about
So,
it.
like, if people aren't familiar, X Prize is basically this group that makes these big, significant monetary prizes for teams to compete against each other to do things that seem crazy. So, like, there was an X Prize for going to space on a reusable rocket. They're doing some cancer X prizes. There's one that's going on right now called the Wildfire X Prize, which is basically challenging companies to build a system that can detect wildfires anywhere on the planet in less than a minute from space, and then deploy autonomous drones to extinguish them before they get large enough that they turn into a real wildfire. The idea is, like, instead of responding to fires once they're too big to control, you're able to stop them in their tracks. And I mean, just like the Palisades fire created $20 billion in damage, it's actually very cheap to do this relative to the damage that wildfires cause. But one we are working towards is an interspecies communication X Prize. And it's a prize and I think that with modern AI advances, this is going to be a lot more possible to gather large amounts of data, reason about it, and figure out the vocabulary and grammar of these species. The idea is it's the first team that can meet species where they are and communicate with them in a repeatable, verifiable way. This isn't teaching a dog to, say yes when you say go.
Do you want to eat?
Exactly. No, this is bi-directional communication, objective, verifiable, deterministic, predictable. And it's a really hard one, but I think a good X Prize should be. You shouldn't be picking things that are easy.
Right.
You're picking things that they seem like they're just out of reach and you just need to stretch for it.
Whales and dolphins, they have a language, but we don't know what it is.
That's right.
So the idea is the using of AI.
Yep.
If you get to super general intelligence and AI can run all the patterns through some sort of a program and determine what is being expressed.
We've learned some things. Like we've learned how a lot of cetaceans can call names and very very unique IDs.
They have dialects.
Yep, they do. But we are so far away from cracking the code, right?
Isn't that nuts? So he freaks out, and so he starts telling his friends. And he's like, "Come with me. I'll show you the launch. I'm not lying."
People forget that. He went out and he showed people a craft that didn't look like any normal craft come up right when he said it would.
Yeah.
Over a base that wasn't even known then really well, and a sub base, an area not Area 51 proper. He's the luckiest motherfucker in the world. He did it 3 weekends in a row till he got caught.
Right.
So it's just like, man, every time you try to call bullshit on him, I try so hard on so many things, motherfucker. People think I'm just some fucking believer.
People have ever called bullshit on him is that he said he might have seen an actual alien. But he said he was walking down a hallway and looked through one of those little tiny windows that's in a door, those little tiny 12-inch square windows, and he peered in it quickly as he was walking by, and it seemed like there was a small thing that was sitting on a chair, and there's people standing over it. But he doesn't know if it was a doll. He doesn't know if it was, and so in his mind, he's like, "Fuck, did I see an alien? Like, what the fuck?" But he can't go back. It's not like everything's. If you work on top secret stuff, apparently everything's very compartmentalized. Like the people that work on metallurgy don't have access to the people that work on propulsion, that don't have access to the people that, if there is a biological entity, that they examine it.
Which frustrated the fuck out of him, right?
That's not how you do science.
It's not how you do science.
Right. You have
and
to collaborate.
He says, I wasn't the most qualified person to be there. Maybe they hired me because they could easily diss me. He's like, why didn't we have better people on this? People that were more... So he was really frustrated, and he said to me, like, he thought it was a crime against the scientific community. If they have this stuff, like he says it was a crime. And, he talks about that thing through the window. He's so funny about it. I sat him down for long, many sessions, really trying to get it out of him.
Yeah.
He goes, Jeremy, I think they were just obsessed with measurements. I go, what do you mean? And he's like, well, look, there was something in a chair, but it was small. Maybe they were trying to just measure it to see if it would fit in a craft. So that's how he kind of gets around, like, did he something or not? He doesn't know.
Like it could have been a doll that they constructed that was really the same height as these things were.
He just doesn't want to go there, right?
And so these creatures that were in this vehicle, if there were creatures in this vehicle.
There were 3 seats.
Yeah, and he estimated they had to be how big?
Like what you think of as like a little gray alien, man, 3-4 feet.
Right.
He said they looked like they were made for children.
The seats.
Yeah, and so look, and every time I try to be like dismiss Bob myself, there's something that creeps in my mind. I'm like, hold on. Like I find out that he was telling the truth. Like recently, I had it verified that he did work at Area 51. Like I know I had a guy. I found the guy after 30 years that he wouldn't talk with George, the guy that did his security clearance.
Mm-hmm.
I found him. I talked to him multiple times about this, and he did clearance for Bob for the test site. But even more recently, from people that have position to access that information, it was confirmed. I just want you to know, he worked out there. Now, I have people that were out there that saw him on a Janet flight. Bob worked out there.
And a Janet flight is those unmarked planes that would leave from the Vegas airport and head into Area 51.
Right. And so here's the deal, man. Like, it's the cumulative evidence about Bob that I, as a friend of his, like I have no reason to doubt him. And all the evidence tells me that it happened exactly like he said. And he's explaining it best of his ability. And to his own detriment, actually, before coming on your show, man, he's probably the most hated dude. For some reason, people go crazy about him. They either love him or hate him.
Well, I think your documentary turned to people's opinions about him as well.
Thank you, brother.
But then having him on, I mean, some people still call bullshit. They think like his migraines were convenient.
Oh, come on. You saw
But he was having them. He was having them in the green room before we started going on. He was very nervous about doing it.
Of course. He'd been beat up his whole life about this shit. I gave him McDonald's before, and I think his wife was super pissed at me, and I was like, you give him a salad. No, he gets really, like, crushing migraines, but, people that are going to call bullshit on that, we're talking about fucking UFOs. If you're going to call bullshit on a migraine, what are you even listening for?
I didn't feel bullshit.
It wasn't
I felt like the whole thing was uncomfortable for him, for sure. But it didn't seem like he was lying. But, look, some people that are really good at liars. But usually when you're really good at lying, you lie about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a consistency in people's lives. And the deeper I got in, chilling with his mom, chilling with his family, chilling with friends that have known him forever, new friends, every single person. And he doesn't talk to them about UFOs, by the way. Like all that. He never talks about that. Just normal life situations.
Right.
The one thing they all said to me, Bob wouldn't waste his fucking time with making up a story, and he'd probably make up a better one. That in the rest, he would. And Bob always says that. He goes, "Man, I wish I could fill the voids for people." He goes, "It's a horrible fucking story, but it happens to be what happened."
Right.
If I was making one up, he goes, "Man, I got some other cool ideas." Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Of course. And so it's like if you're a liar, you generally lie a lot. Like liars don't just lie one time in their life, and then you catch them. They're inconsistent. Like he was lying long before there was an internet. I mean, excuse me, he was telling the story long before there was an internet. So if he was lying, like in the late '80s, like there would be inconsistencies in his story. Like he would forget how he said it. He would fuck something up, or
dude, for the research I did this. For the documentary, like I told him, you got to give me full access to your life, dude. Like boxes, whatever. Don't open them. Let me get all your tapes, everything. Right. I was shocked. Like people, if they're tried something, they're real careful around you. Just that was not my experience. But here's my other thing: is like, do we have to believe one single person to understand that this is? Yeah, this is a real phenomenon.
No, but he's one of the more interesting cases because if he's telling the truth, that means that the government has been working on these things for decades and decades, and that they have gotten themselves in this pickle where they can't publicly disclose what they know and what they have access to because they've had all these people work on these things secretly, and they sort of have a long history of hiding information.
Right. Now think this, right? Like I've been down this path myself mentally. I happen to know that I happen to trust that there was a reverse engineering project separate from Lazar and everything he told us, right? It's a separate thing from a Russian UFO crash that dealt with laser weaponry. There was a derivative exploitation project on the laser as a weapon. I know somebody that worked in that program. I feel it to be a true story. Imagine the derivative technology that you could get from something like highly advanced, just working on it. You're not going to be able to make a UFO because the material science, we haven't caught up yet how to perfectly layer atoms to make the
metallurgy.
Yeah. We will one day have that ability. But our material science is what I think holds us up from like making a craft, right? But what can we learn from one of these pieces of technology. And my ending is a fucking shit ton of derivative technologies have come from looking at these advanced materials.
That was always the assertion. That was the thing that the American Computer Company. Do you remember?
I've heard a lot of stories that they've leaked things to private industry. I mean, fuck, I would do that.
This is
UFO
weird.
landing is fact, not fantasy. The Russians insist.
This is
This is from
1989.
1989, the New York Times.
So
Wow.
Read the beginning of this.
I like Jamie just goes, this is weird.
It's not a joke, nor a hoax, nor a sign of mental instability, nor an attempt to drum up local tourism by drawing the curious, the Soviet press agency TASS insisted today in discussions of what it called an extraterrestrial visit to southern Russia. Residents of the city of, how do you say that? Voronezh. How do you say it?
I don't know, you did.
Voronezh?
I don't know, man.
It's Voronezh. Good
Yeah,
luck with
yeah.
that.
Good
Insisted today that lanky, three-eyed extraterrestrial creatures had indeed landed in a local park and gone for a stroll, and that a seemingly fantastic report about the event carried Monday by the official press agency TASS was absolutely true. It was not an optical illusion, said Lieutenant Sergei A. Matveyev of the Voronezh, however you say that, district police station, who said in a telephone interview that he saw the landing of the UFO on September 27th. Lieutenant Matveyev confessed that he had not actually seen the aliens, but that he saw the spaceship, and that it was certainly a body flying in the sky, moving noiselessly at a very high speed and a very low altitude. He said, anything is possible. To be honest, Lieutenant Matveyev said he was a little skeptical himself when he first saw the object. I thought I must be really tired, but I rubbed my eyes and it didn't go away. And then I figured in this day and age, anything is possible. Isn't that funny? 1989, in this day and age. Using the sensational tone that has lately infected the once staid TASS, the press agency today provided more details of the UFO landing in Voronezh, a city of some 300 miles southeast of Moscow.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, it stands to reason that we know that they're a machine, right? We know they can do things that we're incapable of creating right now. Like, there's got to be somebody controlling them.
Look at this. Look at this.
What?
A three-eyed creature about 9 feet tall and fashionably dressed in silvery overalls and bronze boots with a disc on its chest disappeared, then landed and came out for a promenade with a companion and a robot. The aliens seemed to communicate with each other, producing the mysterious appearance of a shiny triangle, and activated the robot with a touch. Huh. It's so hard, you know. You're dealing with like people. I saw this, like who
Yeah, I
fucking-
deal with a lot of this,
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah.
talking to people about it. You actually said something to me one time that really struck me about this. I called you, or we were talking on the phone, frustrated, and I said, I can't wrap my head around, if this is true, why there's so much contact, why there's so many types of crafts. Like, we could go to the moon, you know, with like one satellite in like 2 weeks if we had to do it. And you said to me, maybe it's fucking get here. You said that to me, and it made me think, if maybe it is just easy to get here, whatever these things are, maybe they're not from far away.
Well, or maybe it doesn't matter if they're from far away because their ability to transcend space
Right.
is very different than what we understand. Like, if you talk to someone from the 1400s and said, you know, I live in California, but I want to visit Italy, they'd be like,
Yeah, right.
how the fuck are you going to visit Italy?
Yeah.
You going to get in a boat for a month? Like, what are you going to do? How much food do you have? You going to get scurvy?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? But today, you're like, oh, yeah, of course you are. You're like, I'm going to go to Hawaii. Of course you are. You don't have to worry about rowing out there for 4 months. No, you're just going to go. You're going to fly. Me and the family, we're going to go to Maui. It's going to be great. It's like our version of travel is so radically different than people that lived 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. What is it like 1,000 years from now? Well, it might be radically different to the point where you can just visit extraterrestrial planets.
Maybe it would be as simple as just the I make that joke. They like our top hats, kimonos, and cupcakes. They just fucking love them in here. We're really cool to watch. You know,
Yeah.
Maybe.
It could that it's a part of scientific inquiry. It could be they're gardeners. They're coming back to see how their crops are growing.
Right. Or maybe a combination. If it's easy for one group, maybe it's easy for a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, right? It's in the Journal of like Cosmology or something. I don't know. I'm going to fuck that up. Hal Puthoff. He lives out here in Austin. He just published a paper, peer-reviewed paper, I think, about the idea maybe they're from here.
From here. So.
Like as if...
I've heard that name before. How do I know that?
Yeah, through so many things. Like he was back in the day working for the Stanford Research Institute studying remote viewing. And like this guy's always been kind of... well, you say, well, you know what? That's kind of the funnest shit, right? Like
sure.
you get paid to study consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, do it, you know? So, but you know, he's had access to a lot of information because of that. So it's one of the people when he speaks, I listen, right? What does he have to say about it? He wrote this paper and he wrote it a long time ago and kind of worked on it, I guess, but it was published yesterday in a scientific journal. And it proposes this idea of the ultra-terrestrial, so like something that's been here a long time, maybe like aliens that got here and got stuck, or a civilization that was so advanced and there was some world catastrophe, so it hit itself and now just kind of lives here with us, and maybe they have investment that we don't fuck up the planet, that we don't blow ourselves up. You know, maybe that's... Maybe they have some investment other than your crop theory, you know, the idea that we're just a commodity.
Well, I don't think we're necessarily a commodity, but I don't think we would have a problem with going to a planet and planting life. Like imagine if we found a planet and it's like Earth of 3 billion years ago, right? There's like some plant life and some fungus, but there's no animal life, no marine life. And we just planted life there and monitored it and watched it grow and evolve. And maybe they have an understanding of there's a process. Maybe there's a process that, like I said, process, not process.
I like that.
Right, like I'm from
super
England.
fancy, man.
Maybe there's some sort of process where they understand that all life takes a very specific path, and that is a path of increasing complexity, right? If you want to really simplify life on Earth, you would go back to the earliest form of life, which is single-celled organisms, right? Well, why did single-celled organisms become multi-celled organisms? Because they're complexifying. They're becoming more complex. And then they ultimately become hominids that create tools, and they ultimately lead to the industrial age, and they ultimately lead to the technological age that we find ourselves in right now. The thing that they have that's clear is it's constantly a path of ever-increasing complexity. Now, when you look at the work of Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and Dr. Robert Schoch and all the people that have studied ancient civilizations and the possibility that there's been a reset along the way, it seems that perhaps there's been some periods of great growth and then some sort of cataclysmic disasters, asteroid impacts and the like, that has sent civilization back down, and then it rebuilds back up again. But it always rebuilds back up again. Mm-hmm. It always seems to be on the path of ever-increasing complexity and constant innovation, at least amongst the most sophisticated of creatures, which we like to think of ourselves as. Maybe that is just a course in the universe for life. Maybe all life follows that course.
And we're biologically developing, too. I mean, we're evolving, so... You want to hear something fucking crazy?
Yes.
Okay. This morning, I was talking with a guy named Gary Nolan. Have you ever heard his name?
I have.
Yeah. So he, Stanford professor. He's, been working for 10 years studying MRIs of the brains of people like pilots who have had close encounters. And what they found over this 10-year study, there was a CID, but he just openly talks about it now. It's all out in the open, which is cool. There was damage. Like, I've seen the images, some of them. There's damage to the brain when people get close proximity to one of these power sources. Like when they get close to it.
Damage.
Yeah, fucking white matter damage to their brains from in close proximity to a UFO or UAP.
Like close. Are you talking like Commander David Fravor close? Ground?
There was some ground. Close. Like there's an encounter where it's... Like, let's just say you could throw a rock at it. How about that?
Right. Did Commander Fravor go through these examinations?
Commander Fravor that. So, basically, this study found conclusively that there is damage that occurred, not intentionally, but it's like radiation type damage.
Can I put something?
Sure.
Maybe these people that have been examined, maybe the damage is what caused them to see these things in the first place.
Okay, let me now we're going to get real fucking weird, because check out what they discovered. They discovered in doing these studies on damaged brains that there is a part of the brain that in a lot of these UFO encounter people, their neurodensity in that area of brain is like 1 in 100. And they've found out through this study that that part of the brain, that it deals with intuition, impulse decision making. Your intuition, you know, like hunters, right? They need like really good intuition, so the impulse, just knowing when to do something. They've studied it in, like, I guess he said like a Japanese form of chess. I don't know the game.
Go?
I don't know.
Oh, that's Chinese.
I don't know. Maybe they studied it, that there's neurodensity in this area when people's intuitive moves in a form of chess.
Okay.
They found out that these people are way more likely to have a UFO encounter. So it's the opposite of what you said. Damage was caused by the close proximity to the propulsion system. But what they found out is that these neural density area, I forget the name, brain, the part, they call it the brain within the brain. You could probably look it up. It's just, now, even weirder than that, I think Gary should tell you this, but even weirder than that, they found that couples are partnering who have these neural dense areas, like more than would be random.
So if they're just intelligent people.
Sure, like a smart person.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know exactly what it does, but that correlation is so interesting. So Gary was saying this morning, cool breakfast conversation, that he thinks having that neurodense area about intuition allows them to see something that's there that other people's minds would just make them ignore. That's his theory.
Well,
what's interesting, I'm reading an interview with him about this, and as he was saying everything, I'm kind of reading along. They get to this part where the brain scans look very similar to people that had the Havana syndrome, and so they were comparing people to that. And then he says he got locked out of the files because it's now a serious incident and something else.
Yeah, he said there was a lot of crossover, or people that were, because it's an intelligence community thing and military thing. And he said he saw a lot of patients with
Let's read this, because this is interesting. He said, there's the question asked him, did the people who claimed they'd had an encounter, especially the pilots, describe any perceivable decrease in neurological capacity? Said, of the 100 or so patients that we looked into, about a quarter of them died from their injuries. The majority of these patients had symptomology that's basically identical to what's now called Havana syndrome. We think amongst the bucket list of cases, we had the first Havana syndrome patients. Once this turned into a national security problem with the Havana syndrome, I was locked out of the access to the files because it's now a serious potential international incident if they ever figure out who's been doing it. That still left individuals who had seen UAPs. They didn't have Havana syndrome. They had a smorgasbord of other symptoms. And it said, the next question is, how does the impact of electromagnetic frequencies factor into your hypothesis of what exactly transpired here? One of the patients, it happened on Skinwalker Ranch. Given how deep into their brain given how deep into their brain the damage went, we can actually estimate the amount of energy required in the electromagnetic waves someone aimed at them. We don't think that has anything to do with UAPs. We think that that's some sort of state actor, and again related to Havana syndrome somehow. So Havana syndrome was dismissed initially, right? And then they're recognizing that, no, something is really going on, and it might be some sort of microwave or targeted attack on people, that they're experimenting on some new ability to disable people.
Yeah, it's all Department of Defense. I mean, it's obvious something is happening.
Well, at least if they do know, it's not public.
Yeah.
Right.
I information. I have no idea. It's one of those crazy things. So what we do know about UFOs, the one fucking thing we know for sure about UFOs is that they're high energy in a small amount of space. This is classically, it's been documented, the radiation effects of these when they're around. So the injuries people get, you've heard like the sunburns on one side of their face and shit, the radiation, the hair falling out.
So that's like from Closest to the Third Kind.
But that's like from life.
That is, they've actually really had that sunburn on
That's
one
how
side
they.
of the-
That's how they made the movie so interesting. Was that they took all the cases, the trace cases, the physical cases. That shit happens to people, and sometimes when they have close proximity to a UFO, they get fucked up.
Right.
It's unintentional. People think it's like the propulsion system itself or something.
Well, Walker,
Walton, yeah.
Travis Walton, rather. That was his story, was that they brought him aboard the UFO to repair him.
Yeah. I wonder if that's the way he likes to look at it, or if that's what happened. I don't know.
Wonder, did they ever do a study on his?
I don't know.
They should, right? I mean, if that guy's telling the truth, or maybe it would be repaired because they took him aboard the craft and supposedly did some medical procedure to him.
I mean, look, we should study this stuff. I think that's the big takeaway of this moment in our history, because we're repeating history. The UFOs have had this huge wave before, and Congress was interested 50 years ago. Multi-nations were studied openly. Now we're back at this point where I feel like there's an opportunity just to be open. We should study this scientifically, man.
The problem is, I feel like even though there's people that have sightings, and even though there's some kind of metallurgy evidence, there's so little stuff. It's not like if I want to study sea turtles, I can go find the sea turtles and go study them. This is too hard to grasp. There's nothing there. You know what I'm saying?
You can't replicate it upon demand, which is what science requires, right?
Yeah.
There are some cool thoughts on how to do that. There have been attempts to lure in UFOs with nuclear weapons.
Really?
Yes.
It attempts to like fake that we're going to bait them.
Bait them.
Really?
Well, we'll talk about how I know that later, but it is true. It's not, some of the people I talk with have told me about these.
Right. Told you can't talk about this?
Yeah,
or
like
you can't
the
divulge
basic
your sources?
Yeah, there we go. The base is 14 out of 14 times or something. I might be getting that number wrong. That there was a way to bait every single time these UFOs would come in when they were transporting nuclear weapons or something like that. Now, if that information is true, then you would have a method. You would have a way to study this. Right? See, I think we're reinventing the wheel so much. Like, obviously,
this UFO disclosure thing comes out. This guy, what is
Didn't it just come out today?
Yesterday.
A whistleblower?
Yeah. This gentleman, David Grush. And David Grush, let's find out who he is and what his credentials were. But he essentially said that they are illegally hiding it from Congress, and they are illegally hiding it from the American people, but they have off-world craft in possession.
Who's the they in that?
It's somewhere. Well, it's in the things they're saying is. Oh, here, let's read it. Air Force veteran has made a bombshell claim that U.S. government has recovered materials that could be proof of UFOs, including an intact craft of non-human origin, but they are keeping it a secret from the public. David Charles Grush, a veteran and former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and National Reconnaissance Office, has blown the whistle on this information, speaking with several news outlets about the crafts. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles. Call it a spacecraft if you will. Non-human exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed, Mr. Grush told News Nation. Mr. Grush served as senior technical advisor for the unidentified aerial phenomenon analysis with top secret compartmented information clearance, according to the debrief. He also served as a senior intelligence officer in the National Reconnaissance Office. In total, he has 14 years of experience serving as an intelligence officer. So here's the question. Is that a PSYOP? Is this, we've got a non-human craft, a PSYOP? Like if I was the government and I was working on some shit and I didn't want China or Russia to know about it, and we could do some wild shit, some anti-gravity shit. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. But it was a ruse, Mr. Grush told News Nation. People started to confide in me, approach me. I have plenty of senior former intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me that they were part of a program. He told the debrief that he's prepared many briefs on UFOs for Congress, but last year decided to provide hours of classified information and data about the materials recovery program. Mr. Grush claims the materials recovery program was shielded from proper congressional oversight. So this is what Bob Lazar has been saying forever. This guy's saying that it was going on for 80 years. So, like, this brings us back to the 1940s. I mean, this means like Roswell. This is what they were talking about when all the people that were at Roswell, that were at the actual crash site and the actual claim they saw bodies. And then there was 2 different aircrafts that were flown in to Roswell, New Mexico, and took the wreckage and flew it in 2 different aircrafts in case one of them crashed, supposedly. And they flew them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This has all been documented. Now, if that was a balloon, it was just a balloon, why would they go through such lengths? And why are there so many people that have so many stories about Roswell? Why are there so many hokey, goofy fucking explanations of what happened, including it was a parachute, and there was human dummies, like crash test dummies that were evolved. They were crash testing things, like not according to the people that were there. What they saw was materials that could not be explained, insanely light. You would crumple it, and it would immediately flex back to the stage that was out there. They found things that had some sort of writing that resembled hieroglyphs. They don't, I mean, these people, they could have all been full of shit. It could have been just some story, something happened, and everybody told everybody, and you're playing a game of telephone, and the next thing you know, it's this wild story of bodies and little tiny caskets and, and people being silenced. But the problem is the story is very universal. When they're all telling the story, it's real similar, man. It's a real, and the guy who was a part of the initial release, he went public afterwards and said that stuff that we showed the American public when they were sitting there. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was showing like a piece of a weather balloon, and they had this smile on their face. This is one day after I think it was the Roswell Daily Record. They had the front page of the newspaper. The government has recovered a crashed UFO.
I mean, I don't know how big the universe is.
This is the gentleman. So let's play this.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
That's it. Where's the whole interview?
Probably that website.
See if you can find. Is that something you have to sign up for? What is it? What is it?
News Nation.
News Nation. Meanwhile, that might be a 100% government-controlled organization that just promotes propaganda. That guy's working for them. You got to think about all these things.
I know.
News Nation. Who are these folks?
Chris Cuomo ended up.
Oh, interesting.
What channel it is.
He's their fucking centerpiece. Look at that.
Yes, he is.
He looks a little tanner than usual.
Can we save ourselves from ourselves, Joe? To go back to the humanity sliding towards the brink?
It's possible.
Oh, here's the 10-minute interview.
Okay, let's hear this guy.
What do you want? How much?
Just play it. Let's just see what's up.
Military program that has reportedly found wreckage of fully intact, exclusive
On the UFO question.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Grush alleges the U.S. government.
Does it keep going? What else does it say?
The entire American public has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
It's also harder for people to wrap their minds around the concept.
I don't know, man.
He might be full of shit.
Well,
He might be.
I'm fascinated.
Agent. He might be a government agent.
Well, to unpack that a little bit, so there are. I can only speak to it from a military perspective. So he was in the Air Force. There are programs, they're covered programs, or there are programs that you're not going to get read into. And just because you're read into one program doesn't mean you're going to get read into other ones. So his clearance, TSSCI, is not an uncommon one. It's the same clearance that I held that I was in. Having a clearance, there's two things, right? You have to have the clearance, and then you have to have the need to know. So you could view him saying we were not read into another program as something that would be conspiratorial, or you could view it as like one program didn't necessarily have something to do with the other one, so there's no need to actually read them in. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm fascinated to understand. It sounds like what he is saying is that the United States military is nesting that program, the program to go recover, and I would be fascinated to know how they are doing that invisibly. I mean, we're talking aircraft. We're talking identification early on, aircraft moving teams, and this. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of shit.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
But there are people that are coming forward, so it's not like
Sure.
they're totally being quiet, which is sort of
They're
in
coming
line
forward with
human
a piece.
nature.
They're coming forward with a piece of a pie. I'd be
Right.
fascinated how all the pieces of the pie fed together. I'm not saying what he's saying isn't true.
Myself have not detailed looked at the footage. However, FLIR experts and people that work with NSA have looked at it for me, and these are not lights in the distance. These are craft, very similar to what Commander Fravor talks about, without plumes, without heat signatures, non-traditional field propulsion systems. We don't have that.
I thought they tried to. Is this it right here? Is this the Mexican Air Force footage?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
if
they
you-
tried to say these were lights on like an oil rig out in the water. That's been debunked.
Yeah, they
and
tried to say fire and
Well,
an oil rig,
it's-
right?
no.
The 2004
Talk to the pilots.
Comcast video was the Mexican Air Force tracking like 6. So literally right after we come back, and I think we were getting ready to go to Fallon, and I had Comcast, and the home page comes up, and there's this video, and I go, holy cow, that looks like what we chased. And it was like 6 of these things, and they were tracked in the same area too, right off the coast of Ensenada.
And it's not rare. There's now admitted an increased frequency. A Pentagon spokeswoman finally went off script. I was tracking the scripts for the last 2 years of what Pentagon spokespeople say about Commander Favor's experience. Someone went off script last week in the New York Times, and she admitted there's an increased frequency of near misses because of these AAVs, anomalous aerospace vehicles. So it's pretty astounding. We're getting all these kind of revelatory moments in these little seeds that these are not ours. We don't have this. Even Elon doesn't have this. I mean, this is a propulsion system unlike anything we have. It's amazing. It's gravity propelled.
Now, that footage,
Yeah.
when it said that there's a fleet of them, how far away are those guys where you don't see the individual objects, you only see a singular spot?
The pod is, when you get pretty narrow, it'd be like, if I put 3 people around you, I can look at you and not see the other people. So that's
Right.
what the pod is doing. But the radar is seeing everything because it has an AESA radar on it, which is an electronically scanned array. So instead of like the radars we had, which did the mechanical, doing this like old school, this thing is just a panel that sits in the front of the airplane, and through beam sharing or beam shaping, it can move and it can look all over. So we used to have what was called track while scan, so we would be able to track a target while we're still scanning. This thing has it scans while it tracks. So it literally, if the radar sees you, it has basically a weapons quality solution. And it can do that on multiple targets. That's the same way the spy radar, the Aegis system works on the cruisers. It can track multiple targets and have weapons quality on all these different targets while it's still scanning a volume.
So in that image, you're seeing one individual object, but there's other objects?
Yes. The radar is seeing the object that the pod is looking at where they're talking. And when you hear the video, you hear the pilot say, dude, look at the SA page. There's a whole fleet of them. So what they're seeing is the pod is looking at the main. That's the bigger object at the gimbal, the thing that's rotating on the screen. And there's 5 smaller things in front. So this thing's just sitting there. And then he said they turn around on the radar and start going the other way while the pod's looking at this guy just kind of rotating.
So like a mothership and smaller aircraft,
Could be.
something along those lines. Video of those smaller aircrafts, or just the video of the one large one?
The only thing is the target. I would highly doubt, even if they had the video, that they're going to release the radar because of classification levels.
Are you able to tell the story you told me about what was underwater with your other buddy? Because is that okay?
Yeah. So it's amazing. People come out of the woodwork when they figure out you've had this because they don't feel alone. So I was working. I still do it, but I was doing oil and gas at the time on a contract, and one of the guys, the story came out, and he was a Navy helicopter pilot. And he comes in, he goes, dude, hey, can I talk to you? I go, what about it? He goes, dude, I got to talk to you. And I said, what do you want to talk to me about? Dude, you know your UFO? He said, yeah. He goes, I had a similar experience. I said, what's that? He said, he was flying CH-53s, which is a big lift, heavy lift that the Marine Corps uses, and the Navy uses it for certain. And when they go for the East Coast, they do a lot of shooting. At the time, it was off of Puerto Rico. We had Roosevelt Roads that they ended up closing. But he was flying out of there. And, you got super clear being water. And they have these things that are called BQMs. They fly around, and then when they're all done, because they'll fly towards the ships, and the ship can, they can track with the radar. And then they also do, the ship submarines shoot torpedoes. They're called telemetry rounds. So they gather all the data on what the torpedo is doing underwater. And then they blow ballast, and this thing will come to the surface and float, and then they go pick them up, and then they can extract all the data out of them. So they do it for both. So he said the first time they're out, and they're going to pick up this BQM. And those things, when they're flying, they're done. A pair comes out, and they hook it up. The helo drops the swimmer in the water. He goes and hooks this whole thing up, and then they hoist the whole thing up and fly back, and then they extract the data. So he says he's sitting in the front. In helicopters, there's, CH-53, you can actually see down by your feet, just like typical, like you go to Hawaiian ride, because you can see what you're down. So you got really good visibility out of those things, and you can stick your head out the window, too, because you're just kind of hanging out. He says he's going on there, and they're getting this thing hooked up, and as he's looking down, because they're, 50 feet above the water, he sees kind of this dark mass coming up from the depths. And they start to hoist the diver up, and they've got the BQM, and as they hoist it up, he says, and he's looking at this thing going, what the hell is that? And then it just goes back down underwater. It just once they pull the kid and the BQM out of the water, this object descends back into the depths. So he thinks, well, that was pretty weird. So he goes out, he says, not too long later, a few months later, he's out and he's picking up a torpedo. So he says they hook the diver up on the winch and they're lowering him in, and as he's looking down, he sees this big, massive, he goes, it's not a submarine. He's seen submarines before. Once you see a submarine, you confuse it with something else. This big object, kind of circular, he says, is coming up from the depths, and he starts screaming through the intercom system to tell him to pull the diver up, and the diver's like a few feet water. So they reverse the winch, and the diver's thinking, what the hell's going on? And he's getting pulled up, and all of a sudden, he said it just got sucked down underwater, and the object just descended back down into the depths, and they never recovered the thrust.
Jesus.
And this happened in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I think it is. I could probably get in touch with him and ask him. And he told me, and I'm like, where'd the torpedo go? It just got sucked down. It just went down, and then you get the people that attribute it as, something happened when it blew ballast and it got on water and sank. And he's like, it didn't sink. He goes, it literally looked like it got sucked down. The only reason they did the New York Times stuff, they talked to him, but because the incident was 90s, they wanted something, newer. So they didn't include it, but I know they talked to him about it.
Now, what was the other footage that we were looking at? There was the first footage that Jamie pulled up that wasn't the gimbal footage?
Mm-hmm.
That was
the Go Fast.
The Go Fast. What is that?
That's it actually looks more like a Tic Tac, but they saw it going across the water, and they're just grabbing a lock. So they're seeing this with their eyes, and he gets the FLIR to lock on it. And you hear the kid go, oh, I got it, because he gets the auto track, and it's just something screaming across the surface of the water. So,
and this is in the same area?
This is East Coast, yeah. This is the same time frame as the gimbal video.
The idea that these are birds, or the idea that this is a radar glitch, or somebody said pilot error, like on a clear blue day, Commander Fravor has nerves. I mean, that kind of thing that people have said on your show to you, that, these are explanations that make sense.
Who said that?
I don't even want to say their names.
Mick West?
Yeah, sure.
Mick believes everything. Like every single thing that's ever happened has a rational explanation.
Yeah,
for
it's
it.
so the probability that all the radars went off at the wrong time. Commander Fravor had nerves. That all the other pilots up there with him, that this thing shot off like a gun instantly. Like that was somehow perfectly coordinated. That's a conspiracy. That's a fabrication. Probably Occam's razors. The events happened exactly like we're being told.
Yeah, for us, and I'll go back to the beginning of the story of, the other pilot who was brand new. She had been in the squadron for 4 months, 5 months. So she was still working on her initial qual on the airplane. And, so she gets we get the real world vector, and it's like, okay, real world vector, cool. I'm going to get to do something real, exciting. Then you see the water, and you think, oh, something's sinking, because it's kind of that shape of an airplane, that cross type. So now it's, oh crap, now it's search and rescue. We got to go down and see, because there's people, and we are sympathetic. And to the Tic Tac, and as soon as the Tic Tac, it's, holy shit, what is that? And when you get, some people get very emotional when you talk about it. Because for me, it was like, for her, when you talk to her, she has a disdain for some of the leadership that didn't tell us that these things were. They're here now, we're getting vectored because we were the first time the manned airplanes had been airborne when one of these things showed up. That no one even gave us a brief that, hey, we're seeing these objects out here for the last 2 weeks. They're just kind of, you might want to know they're out there. And they never told us. No one knew these things existed besides radar operators. And the radar operators didn't know what they were. They just knew they were seeing them. So and there's a lot of stuff that, that it flew around and it came around me and it didn't do any of that. The story that I gave you is just relatively benign, but it was, it's an interesting experience.
Incidents that they reported were taking place before you saw that Tic Tac encounter.
Yeah,
they were taking place over a period of how many weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We went out at the beginning of the month for this 2 week at sea period. We pulled in for Thanksgiving, but other than that, we were out till I think December 21st is when we shipped back in. Besides pulling in for the 3 days at Thanksgiving. So for the 2 weeks prior, so this was on the 14th, and we went out at the beginning of the month. So about 2 weeks, they'd been watching these things come down, go up, come down, go up. But it was always when we were not flying, which is really probably like the midnight time frame until early in the morning the next, till noon the next day. And then we just happened to go. And if you think about it, I laugh at, if there was some little green man flying around in that Tic Tac, he probably got back to the mothership and got yelled at for being seen. But you're like, oh my God, you let them see you.
Safe to say?
Safe to say, but it's not so much just the UFO itself. I mean, I don't call them that anymore. We call these advanced aerial threats. They're different. But
threats?
You honed in on a word we weren't supposed to really get into here in the first part of the show.
Did you have a plan?
I have a very long plan, detailed plan. We're going to start with my body. We're just going to talk about my body for a lot. And
okay, we'll talk about what comes to your body.
Well, my body is interesting. It's unique,
okay.
and it changes shape. And what I've noticed is it's just changing.
Yeah, it's getting
lighter,
depending upon what you put in it.
Oh, can I cuss?
Yeah, for sure. We're on the internet.
You're so fucking fit. You shook my hand. I think you're gonna break my hand.
I didn't mean to.
Don't be so handsome.
I was just shaking your
and
hand. It was a handshake.
I know. Well, it's one of those power moves. You ever see when Trump shakes people's hands and he pulls them in and he's like,
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean to do that. Just meant to shake your hand like a man.
I took it as like, know your place, motherfucker.
Oh,
this is my
weird.
show.
I did that.
No, I'm just joking.
Interesting. So, when did you get obsessed with this aerial threat thing? And why do you threats?
We'll get into that, I guess.
Okay.
But I got into it when I was in junior high. But for some weird reason, I had like some time off and I went to the school library in like 7th grade, and I was like, damn, I'm gonna read some boring shit. What am I gonna read? And I saw this one book, and it had a picture of the Loch Ness Monster in like a UFO. I'm all, that looks cool. And I read that, and I was like, holy cow, these are like real. It wasn't all science fiction. I mean, the way the book was laid out, I was like, these are like real events. I'm all, there's no way, really. And then when the band started doing its thing in the back of the van, there were no like smartphones, so we were buying books, and I would just lay there. We'd have like 20-hour drives, and so I started buying books on the UFO phenomenon. And I was once you do that, it's a black hole. You're done.
Yeah, definitely a rabbit hole. You get sucked to it. At my house, I have a framed poster that's the cover of the Roswell Daily News. That shows the day after the Roswell crash, where it says that the Air Force came and recovered the wreckage, and the whole deal. I've been obsessed with this shit since I was a little kid.
Yeah, I think that's by design. I think that this generation was meant to have this stuff come out. But, I can't prove that. That's just my feeling.
What?
Because of what you said, there's a lot of people. I don't believe that some of the events happened on accident. I think that there's been a lot of events that are on purpose. Some have been for show. Some have been for, there's a variety of reasons. But I think a lot of it is a control system that's really pushing humanity in a specific direction. And
so, like, they got a time frame where they've had these events take place. Is that what you think?
And they also time travel, which is different than what people think in like a movie where they sit in a machine and all of a sudden you're in the 1930s and you got to go save humanity. When you use the technology, there's a time difference between what they're doing inside of an artificially created bubble of gravity of sorts, and then what's on the outside. So if you're on the inside of one of those machines, everything would be skewed more black and white. There would be like a red shift, and everybody would look frozen. So you literally could fly around and grab a Coke out of someone's hand and put it in someone else's hand. It's really...
Where is this from?
Well, take a wild guess. The people I'm surrounded by,
So the people you're surrounded by are telling you this? Is that what it is?
Well, I don't want to get into that, but the people I'm surrounded with and myself, are very close to this stuff. But the physics, the physicist that's a co-founder of my company, To the Star, he's a Nobel nominee. He wrote the book on plasma physics.
What's his?
Dr. Hal Puthoff. And he created remote viewing. Do you know what remote viewing is?
Yeah.
He's the creator of the CIA psychic spy program, but he also has done like really exotic, advanced, forefront propulsion work for the past decades and decades. Actually, I mean, he's deep into the quantum this and that. So he's the one who actually told me about the redshift. Yeah.
And so they have experienced this physically, or is this just theoretical, or they know that it exists? Like
the technology?
Yes.
I believe that the technology not only exists, we've figured out how to play with it, but I'm not going to really get into that. That is what we're doing at my company, though. That is the announcement. So Steve Justice was head of advanced programs at the Skunk Works, and the Skunk Works are who built, the famous secret bases you hear about. Skunk Works did, the U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Black, the F-117 stealth fighter, and
it's all Groom Lake out there.
That kind of stuff. And he literally was in charge of all the advanced programs. So, you got the boss and you got him. And he just finished his career over there within the past 2 months, I think it is, and he was on stage with me when we came out and said we're going to be building one of these things.
So when you say that all this technology exists, have they explained this to you, or have you seen it physically?
I haven't seen anything physically like that. I wouldn't be allowed to go anywhere if that does or doesn't exist.
So they've just explained to you that this exists. And that is in the hands of the U.S. government?
I think no. I don't get into that kind of stuff. But if you don't mind.
Well, why is it that you want to not get into certain things?
I want to I represent more than myself these days.
Right.
So I definitely have to watch what I say.
Well, who do you represent when you say you represent more than yourself?
The team that I'm with. So when you look at the people that are a part of my company, it's Undersecretary of Defense and Senior Intelligence Service.
Is there a list of people that we could see?
Oh, yeah. I thought you guys would have had that.
Yeah, but I mean, is there a list where folks could see it online?
Yeah, they can go to tothestarsacademy.com and scroll down, and you'll be able to see who they all are. So
how did you get linked up with all these people?
That story might be a better way to start, because a lot of people don't know this part of the story, and I think you're going to find it pretty odd as well. But okay, so we'll back up a couple years. So yeah, I was obviously, I started the band Blink, and Blink went places, and then, but we always had a weird relationship, like most bands, and we also thought that we wouldn't be big, so we started companies on the side. And I had a company that incubated a lot of small startups like software and apparel and hardcore skate surf companies and stuff like that. Well, I learned a lot from that, and I pulled out an entertainment startup, The Stars, and I knew I was going to be doing kind of like science fiction franchised stories, just like Disney, but science fiction for adults. And what that means is, I make a story, I title it, I brand it, and I put out the book, and I put out the merchandise, and I go make a movie, and it's a vertically integrated kind of model. Well, one of the stories I knew I wanted to put out was Secret Missions, which was kind of a historical fiction, but based on real events about the UFO phenomenon. But I also knew that I knew shit that most people don't know, because I've studied it for so long, and I happen to put some pieces together that most people don't put together. So before I came out with that book, and before I came out with the plan to take that, make major motion pictures and all that kind of stuff, I knew I needed to ask permission. So I flew around to places. Can't say who they were, and they listened to my pitch, and then I got a email out of nowhere that says meet us next to the Pentagon at this day and time, and I did that. And from that,
you got an email from just a random person?
No, I just can't tell you who it's from.
Okay.
And so then I go out.
Meet in the Pentagon? So you just flew to the Pentagon?
Pentagon City, yeah. It's dude, this gets. I'll tell you when I started freaking out. There's more shit. It gets way worse. This is nothing. So that started me out near D.C. taking some other high level meetings, and there was somebody at a very high level that closed the door, looked me in the eye, and says, "Okay, I'm going to introduce you to somebody." And that person comes to San Diego, puts me on the phone with a general, and the general is listening to my little stump speech about what I want to do with this franchise, because I definitely, I wasn't looking to like force disclosure, and I wasn't looking to be rogue and break secrets. I was like, look, I know what's going on here, and you guys are doing a kick-ass job, and I would have done the exact same thing should I have been the guy at the top that had to make some really hardcore decisions 70 years ago. So I want to support you. I think people are cynical because there's a vacuum. You guys can't say what you're doing. So all these people are just coming up with a bunch of bullshit to say, oh, they don't want us to know, or we can't handle, or it's all about oil and money and all this weird shit.
But you would put these together independently.
I did.
And based on books that you read?
Yeah, people think that like places like the CIA and the DIA, all these intelligence organizations have, a monopoly on information. They don't. They get their information from the real world too. They do have access to archives of information. They do have access to some amazing, satellite data and stuff like that. But if you're smart and you take your time, you know where to look, and you find patterns, you can pretty much put together all the same shit they can. Kind of, and that's what I did. And so when I pitched what I wanted to do, he said, come up and meet me tomorrow. And so I flew up to NASA, actually, NASA Ames, and had a 2-hour meeting there. And after 2 hours, that person says, he looks me in the eyes, I'll introduce you to someone else. And he did. And so I got on the phone with this person, and this person, goes, I'm a skeptic. And then at the end of the conversation, he goes, and see me. And so I did. And that's when things really started happening. So I fly out to this airport, and I sit at a table in a restaurant at the airport. No one's in there. And this gentleman sits down, and the waiter comes up. He waves off the waiter, and he looks me in the eye and says, it was the Cold War, and we found a life form. And that's when I started shitting my pants, because I know a lot about this stuff, but you always wait to talk to somebody that is one of the inside people. You always want to have.
So he's down at a restaurant with you at the airport and tells you that they found a life form.
Yes. And war and everything that they did and every decision they made at the time was because of the consciousness of the Cold War.
And why has he decided to meet with you at the airport?
Because the only way you meet with these people, the only way you ever would have anyone talk to is if you can provide a service that they need. Mm-hmm. And my service was pretty interesting to them, because I said, look, you guys, you struggle with saying disclosure. You want to tell everybody everything, which I don't think everyone should know everything. And then you say they can't handle it, so don't tell them anything, And I'm like, there's a middle road there, and here's the way I would do the middle road, and it resonated with them, And so we had a pretty epic conversation for like 2
Why
years.
you? Like, why? What is it about what your message was? What your idea was? I'm going to tell you some top secret shit that they've tried to keep away from the American people. I mean,
Well-
you take a guy who's like a big celebrity who's in a huge rock band like you, and you just say, hey, meet me in an airport. I'm going to tell you about a life form that we found during the Cold War because you're famous or because you know things?
No, because I have a service. So it's not. It sounds easy when you play it like that, but a service. Like, what can you do for them that they need help with?
And what could you do?
Communication. They don't have a way to make a movie, a book. They don't know how. Don't have a way to make documentaries. They don't have a go on a big show like this and communicate with young people. They don't do that, and nor should they. They look at. You got to look at what they're doing.
So they look for a spokesperson role.
I wouldn't say spokesperson role, communication role. It makes more sense.
So they would some information to you, and you would get it out to people. And now, why wouldn't they do it themselves? Because they wouldn't have the same platform.
They don't
access to the same platform
they
that
don't.
you would have.
And the other reason is people have tried to do movies and stuff like this, but none of them was fortunate enough to know the core story, and most people don't.
Let's explain that then, if you don't mind going back. Like,
Sure.
when you said that you were able to put things together that other people weren't. What are those things?
Essentially, it's the book Secret Machines, where you have a lot of private finance, you have some world bankers, and you have a lot of people internationally working together to figure out a plan of how to push back against something that's been coming here for a very long time, but using off-the-books finances and using mechanisms that we're not totally aware exist. And what people have to realize is, the UFO phenomenon isn't a phenomenon. There's the universe is fucking gigantic, and there's life everywhere, every fucking where, and there's a lot of life that's way advanced than we are. And just like Voyager left our solar system, a little dinky satellite from the 70s,
doesn't always kind of seem like the most boring possible solution is usually the right one. It's like, what's the most boring thing? The most boring thing is nothing's happening, but you're imagining the dog is somehow has a telepathic link to you. Occam's the simplest, but it's also the most boring. Like, these crazy fucking UFOs. I'm sorry if you've talked about this a bunch on the podcast, but the UFOs that we're seeing, that the Navy is releasing these videos of these Tic Tacs zipping around, and it's Navy pilots. It's not the people we interviewed in that show. It's Navy pilots who are like, I don't know what the fuck this is, and I have great conversations with Uber drivers, and like we were talking about it, and this guy was like, and a lot of them are programmers and shit, and this guy was like, it's probably it's a glitch in the type of radar they're using. I think it must be a glitch. I mean, that's the most likely reality. They're not seeing it with their own eyes.
They're not?
I don't think so. I think they're just picking it up on radar, and so he's like, maybe it's a glitch, or maybe it's like...
We should find that out. Can you Google... if the pilots were picking it up on radar, the pilots spotted UFO, to see if because I know some guys have spotted things with their own eyes. I know for sure some guys have.
I'm not sure if the data set. I think
it's probably relevant to the conversation, though. It's probably a good thing that we know. People listening going, what the fuck? I get super skeptical. I feel like almost like it's a plot. I don't want to go full Eddie Bravo, but I feel like when I see people talking about UFOs, I'm like, okay, what else is going on? What are you distracting me from? Mm-hmm. Is this really a big issue? I was like, is it really happening? Well, can I see it? What do you got? You got nothing? Oh, you got like some radar. You got radar from 1, 2 pilots, 3 pilots. Okay, I believe it, but I want to see more. Why do I want to see more? Like, what am I? And you'll get caught up in it. It'll chew up hours of your day.
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of those guys that we ran into on that show. I felt bad for them because they didn't understand what had happened to them. They had gotten caught in this weird loop of looking for secrets and looking for mysteries to be solved and looking for hidden conspiracies. And they get caught in that. And some of that shit is real, which is part of the problem. Some of it you can come across, the Gulf of Tonkin and the Northwoods, Operation Northwoods. You can come across a bunch of them that are real. Enron, you can see how they put that together. You're like, what? You could see real crazy conspiring.
Yeah.
And then you can get lost and think it's everywhere.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like, dude, I was just.
What is this, Jamie? Oh, according to Day, the AAVs. What does that mean?
Is that the
Is
new
that a new
UFO?
word? How about you say UFO? You fucks.
Come on, yeah. We really changed UFO.
We're AAVs. We don't refer to us as UFOs. These are my pronouns. Appeared at an altitude greater than 80,000 feet, far higher than commercial or military jets typically fly. Initially, the Princeton's radar team.
It's a radar. Really high or Prince Story is what it's called. It's like a really high processing radar system or something.
Why is it spelled Princeton? If it's Prince Story.
Yeah, no, it is Princeton. It's just that apostrophe is in a weird spot.
Oh, okay. The radar team didn't believe what they were seeing, chalking up the anomalies to an equipment malfunction. But after they determined that everything was operating as it should, they began detecting instances which the AAVs, I want to know what the fuck that means, dropped with astounding speed to lower, busier airspace. Day approached the Princeton's commander about taking action. He said, I was chomping at the bit. I really wanted to intercept these things. What?
Yeah.
That's we have the fucking craziest piece of country.
Yeah.
Like there's an alien, man. I want to chase it. I want to catch it by the tail.
Motherfucker. I was
catch it by the tail.
Put it in a fucking
Anomalous
zoo.
aerial vehicles. Get the
Come on.
fuck for it.
Whoever invented that new name is an ass.
He's an asshole.
Give us a break.
I was actually the one who decided to call them AAs.
Oh, come on.
Technically, it's not an unidentified flying object.
You're not taking our fucking UFOs, man. I'm going to fight that.
What is it again? What is the exact phrase?
Anomalous aerial vehicle.
Anomalous aerial vehicle.
It's an AAV.
You're an asshole.
It's
Anomalous. It's an anomaly.
I want to propose a new name for UFOs. Anonymous.
$1 billion study. Two fighters were diverted to intercept one of the strange objects. When they first arrived on the scene, the pilots didn't see any flying objects, but they did observe what the lead pilot, Commander David Fravor, later referred to as a disturbance in the ocean. The water was churning with white waves breaking over what looked like a large object just under the surface.
Yeah.
Then they noticed one of the objects flying about 50 feet above the water. Fravor, the commander of the elite Black Aces Squadron, this is a goddamn Nicolas Cage movie, who is a Top Gun program graduate with more than 16 years of flying experience, described it as about 40 feet long, shaped like a Tic Tac candy, with no obvious means of propulsion. It's white. It has no wings. It has no rotors. I go, holy shit, what is that?
Dude, the guy, whoever the company is that makes Tic Tacs, they were like, yes, calling them Tic Tacs. It's free publicity.
Totally. Tic Tac is the one sponsoring this whole deal.
You think it is?
Yeah, man. People are buying Tic Tacs right now. Listen to this. You just say Tic Tac enough. You're like, you remember those old subliminal things you used to do in movie theaters when you were watching a movie and it would say hungry, eat popcorn. Like every 100th frame they would stick like hungry, eat popcorn. They would put subliminal text on the screen. You'd be like, damn, I want some popcorn. If you just say Tic Tacs, people are buying Tic Tacs right now.
Well, we do know that pilot's got great breath, right? I mean, that's a Tic Tac man. If the first time you see a UFO, the first thing that pops into your head is it looks like a mint. That's nuts. There had to be other ways to describe it.
He's got some Tic Tacs, bro, for sure.
I Googled Tic Tac after he said that because I couldn't remember if they were square or if they were like,
They look like I would expect a good UFO to look like.
Yeah. Kind of boring.
Yeah. Like super Apple, like if Apple made a UFO.
Yeah. It's like a pretty sleek.
Yeah.
But going into the ocean part, that's the part I like the best because that kind of lines up with hollow Earth theory and that maybe like they're flying down. In the center of the Earth.
Of course, base in the Earth. Why wouldn't you have a base in the ocean? We never go there. Do you ever fly over? I was just in Hawaii. You fly over 5 hours of water. It's just water.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's that Strava app thing. I feel like we've talked about literally everything. You know the Strava app? Okay, good. It's great, man. I love that I have to think I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. The heat maps, the Strava heat maps that seem to show people walking under the ocean and stuff.
Walking?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, so yeah, because like Strava, it's like I think it was Strava, right? It was like a way for you to track your steps. And some people apparently were in some bases in the Arctic or in the ocean walking around. And it showed up before they could like turn that function off for top secret facilities, like the places they blur out on Google Maps.
So do you think there's like a military base under the water somewhere where submarines go?
God, man, I want to think that, but I'm
like
always
in that movie, The Meg?
Yeah, I think it's probably a technical error, but fuck, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's like the implication of these Tic Tacs and all of it, if you really want to, like, the first, to me, the most obvious one, minus the churning water evidence, is that it's some kind of equipment malfunction.
Well, it's also that they have an unlimited budget for black ops.
Yeah.
We don't know what that number is.
That's right.
We don't get to know.
Yeah.
Right? All that weird shit they do when they're making stealth bombers and all that Area 51 stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how much money goes to that? Like, what is the number? Let's Google this. How much does the U.S. spend on black ops?
I was going to bring this up in the middle of what you guys are talking. There's a program here that was going on. The AATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was going on and had a
just
budget.
the AATIP. Yeah. I'm going to out of your money, but I'm just going to use the AATIP.
$22 million is what their budget was in 2012, and this said that doesn't go on, but apparently it does. Luis Elizondo says it was still operating, and he is part of.
So they spent $2 million to see if the UFOs were a threat.
A year.
And then there's the To the Stars Academy.
Yeah,
that's Tom DeLonge stuff.
Yeah. So
well,
some of it's still going on.
Listen, I'm fucking rooting for it. I want it to be real kind of thing.
Yes.
How many different kinds of things are you aware of?
Well, those are ours. Two. If you look at the
gimbal.
Go Fast, it kind of looks like a Tic Tac. So you could say those two are the same. I think there's other stuff out there. And sometimes it's not that you got to look at where do you obtain the video. It's just like intelligence, and I'll use, because I know you got that picture of Pablo out there, and there was the guy, Tom Cruise made the movie about him. What's his name? Louisiana dude who was flying the drugs for Pablo in and out.
Barry Seal.
Barry Seal. Hey, it was all great until Reagan posted that picture that they had the cameras inside the cargo plane, and then Pablo puts it together. The only place that picture came from is Barry Seal's airplane, and then now Barry Seal's a dead man. So you got to watch when you release, because you go, hey, we got this video, but it was taken someplace we probably weren't supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Or how did they get that video?
Right.
Like, I'll look, the video of the Tic Tac video, that thing first came out. It's kind of funny. The guy that was in my back seat had sent me an email, and this is about probably 2008, so I was retired. And he sent me this video. He said, Skippers, does this look familiar? And it was on strangeland.com, when not suitable for work. I'll just say that. But I look, and then next thing you know, it's on YouTube. So when I would tell this story to my friends, I'd send them the link to the YouTube video. And this is years before the New York Times article. And then when they did the unofficial official report, the video was taken down off of YouTube. And, it kind of puzzled me, like, why'd you take the video down? And I told the guys when they did the unofficial official report, I said, what you really need to look at is how did this thing come off of a classified drive system on an aircraft carrier and end up on strangeland.com and YouTube? Because at the time, the videos were classified secret. And that's not because it was a UFO. It's the AT FLIR video. They did not want that released. So you'd see it on CNN. They blocked out all the performance stuff of what the airplane was actually doing. In this case, the one you see, it's 250 knots with the autopilot on, so it's not that big of a deal. But
Jeremy, how many types of vehicles are you aware of that have been reported?
Credible reports for decades, hundreds of different shapes. Even Lazar himself said he saw 9 different styles, all working off the same propulsion system. The Tic Tac shaped vehicle, that goes back in history. Some people say cigar shaped. Big ships, small ships. They're all different kinds. I think it's important to state though there are other government-funded UFO programs. It's a misnomer, actually, that ATIP was the recipient of the $22 million. It was actually Harry Reid created a program called OSAP. OSAP was the sole beneficiary of that $22 million. New York Times got it wrong. And then what happened is ATIP was a different funded program to study military encounters with UFOs. OSAP was created because of Skinwalker Ranch, a government program to study UFOs and associated phenomenon. ATIP and OSAP communicated and shared information, but they were independently funded. So the $22 million was for OSAP, and then ATIP had its own sources, and then they did collaborate. 2 UFO programs. There are more that I think we're going to learn about.
So the different shapes that Bob Lazar saw. There was 9 different shapes that he saw out of the hangars.
9. Only one up close, yeah.
And none of them were like the Tic Tac.
Not specifically, however, that's not an uncommon. If you go back in history of like military sightings of craft going like maybe 20,000 miles an hour, the Tic Tac is a shape. They have triangles. They have ones that look like rectangles. The thing that is common with all of them is the non-reactionary propulsion system. I think even Commander Fravor said the thing noticed him, was words he first said to me, and kind of went towards him with its nose. But it could move in any direction, right? I mean, it could just move at will, however it wants.
When we first saw it, it was just basically, it never turned. It was just going left, right, kind of doing this.
Shape
like
probably
this
doesn't matter.
And then it became aware because it turned and it actually mirrored what I was doing. When I was coming down, it came up and, so it was obviously knew we were there. And I don't know if it was picking up, energy coming off the airplane or what. I do know that when they tried to lock it, it actively, it jammed a radar, made it pretty much useless. And, Chad was pretty good about kicking it over and grabbing that video. So it's pretty wild.
It's a big deal to actively jam a radars,
Yeah. It's, whenever someone tells you an awesome story, it's great to hear. But God, I wish I saw it myself.
Yeah,
it's
but
like
you
this
got
thing. It's like,
yeah.
You're telling me, and I'm like, wow. I'm listening. I'm trying to imagine. I'm putting it in my head. I'm visualizing it. But damn, I wish I could see it. It's way more fascinating when someone like you talks about it versus some fucking random kook. That's what makes me incredibly interested. Is just your credibility and the fact that this is not, you don't have a history of seeing wacky shit that other people don't see.
No, just this one.
But it's on video, and that there's other ones as well. It's really strange. And I've seen people try to explain it away, and what I don't like about when they explain it away or attempt to explain it away is that they're trying really hard. They're not going, who knows what this fucking thing is? They're not looking at it like cleanly. They're looking at it like a quote-unquote skeptic. I don't like the idea of being a skeptic. Not that I don't think you should be skeptical of certain things. I certainly think you should be. But there's a lot of people that brand themselves as skeptics. And I think it's a lazy way to look at things. I really do. Because I think you're just looking for the holes in things without looking at it objectively. If you wanted to be a scientist, if you wanted to be someone who is a fan of science, then you have to look at it as a thing. Like, look at this information and let's study this without any bias, any preconceived notions. I don't think they're doing that. They're looking at it and they're trying to find a way where they can justify that it's fake. And they're just doing all sorts of mental gymnastics to try to make it fake. That video that you show where that thing slips off to the left and takes off at incredible rates of speed, that alone should freak people the fuck out.
Yeah, because people confuse all the time. Like, we took the video. No, it was another crew that took the video. We watched it for 5 minutes, our eyeballs. And there was 4 of us. And we all have the same story, all saw the same stuff. We all came back and looked at each other and scratched our head and said, WTF, serious? What was that? And then what do? You move on. We never saw it again. I imagine I saw them on radar after that, but I think
they're probably seeing radar all the time. They just don't bring it to the attention of the general public.
Oh, yeah, because if you don't, for a ship, when they see something and, you go, what? Well, you don't have any way to go out there and look at it.
Like when you're talking about they were informing you that they were seeing these things previous to your mission. When you're doing this exercise and they let you know that they're seeing these things, did you say, hey, how frequent is this? Is this something that happens all the time?
I didn't get ours was more of the moment of, when he's telling us, hey, for the last 2 weeks we've been tracking these things.
Right.
And we don't know
whether or not it was just those 2 weeks or maybe it was a year ago. There was other similar situations or...
There's other situations that have happened out there, but I would say, for this, I don't know. One, you got to take it serious. Yeah. We have a tendency, if we don't know what it is, if we just ignore it, it'll go away. And I joke, there was an incident it's probably not too far off the same time frame, where I think it was the Constellation was doing her workups before decommission, and an a Soviet Oscar class Marine surfaced behind her, right? And then it's like, go to battle stations, World War III. How did this foreign submarine get in our area and it's been monitored workups? That's a big deal.
Right.
I said, but now we go out and we have these that are coming at will, and there's nothing we can do about it. We don't know what they are. We have confirmed sighting by 2 aircrew, 4 of us, 2 planes, that said, look, this is not an airplane, this is not a weather balloon, this is not a blitz performance well beyond, and the airplanes that we were flying at the time were literally brand new Super Hornets right out of the Boeing factory. I mean, these were brand new, first Block 2 series that came out. And you go, why wasn't something done? It's like, we don't know what it is. I think it's good now, the moves that have been over the last, 2 years since the original article came out, that now there's a new reporting for the pilots. The Navy's acknowledged these things. We don't know what they were. They're starting to take it serious because, I know there are other events that are not out, recent events where people have been called in to go, hey, I've seen this thing. So the investigation process is still going on. We don't stop. The military doesn't stop. Even if you take funding away, we don't stop. We don't stop until we're told to stop. So, what's going on? You go, well, ATIP ended. You spent $4.5 million a year on it. I think it was $22 million over the 5 years. So you go, what are they doing since then? Well, I'm pretty sure there's still people looking at this, and there's still people that are taking this serious. I will tell you that I won't get into specifics, but there are people inside the United States government that are taking this serious. And I've been to D.C. twice to talk to folks, behind those doors to go because they want to hear the story. And I've got a lot of you joking. I mean, this seriously happened, and like, yeah, it did happen, and it is real. What are you doing about it?
So, what kind of people are you talking to?
High-level government officials is what I'll say, and most of that is because that conversation is me and them, and I don't want people speculating. But you can say high-level government officials I have talked to.
Well, that was always the speculation about what would someone do if they became president. Well, the first thing I would do is I would tell everybody about the UFOs. I would ask immediately what's going on. And I always thought about it. I said, how many people actually know what's going on? And how much of the information? I mean, it's not like if they're dealing with something like this, like your experience, it seems like what you described is what is known. So it's this anomalous event where this thing defies our current understanding of technology, and then it's gone.
Yes.
And so what do you have? You don't have anything else other than that. Like, what other information does anybody have?
Well, I would say this because I've talked to Bob. We did
Bob Lazar.
Yeah, we did an event together, and I'll leave it to everyone it's up to you to believe Bob. I'll say this: Bob's a normal guy. Bob's not crazy.
He's not crazy at all. That was the weirdest thing about talking to him.
But when you look and go, because I had asked Bob, I said, what he described technology when he talks about his story, I said, well, do you honestly think we could, reverse engineer it? I said, how long do you think it would take us? And his response to me was another 100 years. He goes, Dave, it was so far beyond. He goes, the stuff that he says he worked on. He's like, he was on your podcast because I watched it. Hey, there was no wires, and because I had asked him. He said, you first described the ship that he got to see. He said, I used to say, they built it and then it was like wax and you'd heat it up. He goes, now I would say it was built with 3D printing because now with 3D printing, we can build things literally from the ground up and it's basically built as one, not panels, no rivets. It's just made.
Right.
And so when you talk about that and you go, well, it's still 100 years. So you go, well, what if you had the technology? We still, if what Bob says is correct, we still don't understand it. And how fast would it take us to understand that? I mean, if it's driven by something that we don't even have on Earth, which is when he talks about that, we can't create it. Create it for a microsecond, and then it decays, and we go
L-15.
Yeah. So, I think we're still a ways off. I'll argue with the people that go, are we really alone? I was telling Jeremy we used to go out on goggles. Out in the middle of the Pacific, there's no light pollution.
Goggles?
Night vision goggles, so we could see. Well, you go out at night, I'd be on like a tanker hop or something, just hanging out, not doing anything, driving around in circles with the autopilot on. You just turn all the lights down in the car. You have no light pollution, and you just roll your head back and look up. There's billions and billions and billions of stars out there. I always look up because I'm like, are we alone? I look up and go, well, if we're the only ones around, and everything I'm looking at, it's a pretty sad place. It's a pretty lonely universe. I asked my astrophysics prof that once. I said, you believe in extraterrestrial life? And she's like, of course not. And I said, well, there's billions of planets. You think we're it? I mean, the the probability of it is you'd go, oh, there's probably something else out there, and I'm not crazy. I'm just opening up the possibility that we are not the only planet that has life on it.
I think people don't like to seem silly. They don't like to be foolish. And I think when people start talking about anything that's not proven or anything that's connected to a bunch of loony people that are making up stories, which UFOs certainly are.
Yes.
UFOs are connected to so many people that have made up so many stories. What was that gentleman's name from, you would know that guy. He was from another country, Billy something or another.
Oh, Billy Meyer.
Billy Meyer.
Myers, yeah.
Seems 100% full of shit.
Correct? Yeah. He's proven to have done tons of hoaxes with this, but here's the deal. Sometimes I think people have a real experience, and they're always like chasing that dragon, and they get UFO disease, and their brain goes fucking berserk, right? I know that there are people that have had profound experiences, and then they can't ever replicate them, so then they just start going crazy. And I don't blame them for it. But you got someone like Commander Fravor, when he saw that AAV, anomalous aerospace vehicle, his reaction was, I want to fly it. That's a pretty cool reaction. I'd like to fly it.
Yeah, imagine flying that thing.
Well, that's what my buddy, he was my XO at the time, Dell. I got back after all this happened. He looks at me, and we're just standing here, and he goes, hey, dude. I go, what? He goes, what do you think it is? I have no idea, but it was pretty freaking impressive, and I'd like to fly it.
Of course.
And he goes, yeah. I go, I mean, it was, you know, it's just like any pilot. You always want to fly the coolest thing.
Of course. Yeah, of course. You're a driver. You want to drive the fastest car.
That's it. Yeah. Something we don't have.
Yeah.
This idea, you know, maybe we're not alone, that some of these other stars have planets that are maybe technologically advanced. So the next thing people say, and, you know, new eras are going to say, well, they're not coming here because the distance is so vast. Hold the fuck up. From the very beginning, when Bob Lazar came forward and talked about field propulsion, gravity propulsion, distance becomes completely irrelevant. So if we believe, and the radars are right, and Commander Fravor saw this thing moving like a ping pong ball in a glass of water, it's gravity propelled, that's why you can make those maneuvers without exploding, okay? Then distance becomes completely irrelevant for travel. You're literally warping time and space. You're falling into place.
Well, it's like the idea of showing someone a video on your phone long before video was ever invented. People would be like, what are you talking about? Like before photography was invented, which is shockingly recent, right? You had to draw pictures of things you saw. Just like those people that drew or painted those images of those men and whatever those things were with Christ in the background. The idea that we could understand what some insanely impressive technology from a planet that is nowhere near us could manifest. It's nuts.
Yeah. Bob Lazar talks a lot about this. Remember, he's a young guy, right? In 1989, he gets shown something, and all of a sudden he's trying to interpret it through 1989 technology. So he said it looks like it was injection molded because that's what he had. And then I sent him this thing about nanotechnology and, you know, working towards an atomic printer. He's like, dude, that makes a lot more sense. So he has to view it through where he saw it in 1989. However, I will say this. It is my knowledge that we understand exactly how these craft work. Our one limiting factor is our material science. We can't replicate, not the fuel source itself is another.
When you say we know exactly how they work.
Yeah, it does like our laws of physics, this concept of amplification of gravity, this concept of gravity propulsion. We understand how things can move from point A to point B almost instantaneously. Our physics doesn't disallow it, but our material science and the fuel to create that machine that we have machines from other places. So
what do you mean?
Well, Bob Lazar, whether you believe him or not, there was a program. I have other witnesses that I will be bringing forward about S4, where he worked. We have craft.
You have other witnesses that worked with alongside
No, people
Bob?
that corroborate Bob's account, in that they saw him get on and off the red and whites, the Janet flights that come on. Somebody that went to Papoose Lake and was stopped by non-military guards at that time. People that were aware of Site 4 and ET exploitation projects. One is an SR-71 pilot that I've been talking with for a couple years. So these people are coming forward now, and it's like I'm sick and tired of doing it. These little nitpicky things about Bob. Okay, there was a program. There was a back engineering program. They've admitted there are materials. So this is like the metamaterials you heard about in the New York Times, all that. We have materials associated with UFOs that are interesting.
What is that talking about?
So this is something that was launched in the first New York Times article, I believe, in December of 2017, that there is studies being done right now on materials associated with UFOs, right? So actual metals that have come off of, you could say, crashes or
Now, who is that explained that there was something, they were with Eric Weinstein, that was explaining that there was someone who reportedly has something along those lines?
Jacques Vallée has 17 samples.
17 samples. How does one 17 samples?
Well, Jacques fucking Vallée, right? So he is the guy first ever for the United States military created a computer program for the study of UFOs for Project Blue Book. So he's an old school guy. They modeled him after in the Close Encounters movie. It's modeled after Jacques Vallée, the French guy. So he's kind of like been involved with this. He's had more access to government databases than any of us. He went around, collected samples from known, crashes or like when things will come off.
And what's the conclusion?
Well, they're studying them right now. There was just something on Fox about it. They're studying some of these materials and what they will find, because the ones they're talking about, I actually took to New Mexico and had 5 scientists study it about 5 years ago. I got my hands on it, got to study it. The famous parts they're talking about now. It's layered. And the way it's layered is what they're trying to see if it's anomalous elementally, or the way that the elements are bound together, and also the atomic level of layering is what's interesting. We'll find out if it's
explain what